Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick. We're here to continue our series of That One Play. And this is a good one, not specifically a huge play in the game, but definitely a big play to be remembered as a hit from the 2010 season that came in the season opener against the Jets. Ray Lewis absolutely devastated Dustin Keller over the middle. Here to talk to me about that play is Bruce Anderson. Bruce, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you coming on, and in particular, all the people who reach out on That One Play and have something they want to talk about. But tell us, first of all, why this play?
So, well, first of all, I think it's a memorable play just in and of itself, right? This is one of those plays that whenever you see a highlight package of Ray Lewis, they always show this play because Dustin Keller got absolutely destroyed, and it's a hit that I don't know would be allowed or wouldn't be penalized today, but it was a legal hit. It was a really just solid football hit. And it was really sort of a punctuation point towards the end of Ray Lewis's career. So just by itself, it sort of stands alone. But I think it's also one of the things that's important from the perspective of what was happening with the Ravens as a team in 2010 at that point in their arc. Right. You had this team that really, I think a lot of people were expecting more of in 2009, and we're looking forward to, something positive, more positive happening in 2010. And the Ravens in the offseason had signed Anquan Bolden. I think they also had they signed TJ Houshmandzadeh that year as well. So
played with him at 10. Yeah.
So they were like the front office was doing things to add some more offensive pieces. At the same time, you were seeing, I think, some of the impact of age and time on some of those stalwart defensive players. And, this was the time of, we really needed the team to show something.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit because there's a lot to unpack just in what you said so far, but a little bit about the offense in particular, because that 2009 team had, for my money, it was the very best of the first 5 Flacco years. I know that's a minority opinion, but the 2008 team was very good. They had a very good offensive line, but Flacco had not quite matured as a quarterback. It was their big drawback in that period. Great defense. Right. The 2009 team had the best offensive line of the group. And they had Michael Orr playing the position he should have stayed at right tackle, and he played the best ball of his entire career. And he was probably the weakest player on the offensive line. Despite having a great year, one that he could have made the Pro Bowl if he'd been able to stay there the whole year. But Jared Gaither was at left tackle, a better left tackle than Orr was a right tackle even. And then the interior is unbelievable. Grubbs, Burke, and Yanda, to think those guys got to play together for 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. 3 years, I think it was. I think Grubbs missed the Super Bowl a year, didn't he?
Had he gone to
Assembly
Saints?
Yeah. So anyway, I definitely a great interior offensive line, the kind of thing the Ravens just would have loved to have built anytime since. They've really never been able to get to it, but a great offensive line. And to your point, they went out and they got some additional skill position players to try and give Flacco some additional targets in that year.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately for a lot of the Ravens, or at least the last 20 some years, I guess the early years of the Ravens, there was a lot of offense, just not a lot of great defense, or not a lot of consistent defense. The early years, Vinny Testaverde would throw 300 yards and 2 TDs and 2 picks. So we I think gotten used to not so great offensive performance, or at least not consistently great offensive performance. So adding a couple of pieces, I think there was a lot of interest in seeing how the offense is going to change. And that first game of this season, I think, was really memorable for a lot of reasons. And that hit really sort of punctuated things to me.
So, offensively, the team didn't show much in that game at the Jets. It was the opener of the Jets' new stadium at the Meadowlands, the Jets and Giants' new stadium. It was delayed by lightning, which was kind of a weird start just to begin with. And then the Ravens did not do a lot offensively in the first half, not much anyway, even though I believe they might have taken a 7-6 lead at halftime is my recollection. I'm not looking at it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams were really offensively challenged that game or that season. I mean, the other interesting storyline, I think, is the fact that there were so many former Ravens on the opposing team, right? Even the head coach, right? Former Raven, Mr. Ryan. So, but there was Jim Leonard, there was Bart Scott. There are a couple other players. I don't remember who else, but it was sort of brother against brother almost. So I remember it being something that not only was a season opener and something really something that would be looked forward to under normal circumstances, but these were slightly different circumstances.
Yeah, the Jets had acquired LaDainian Tomlinson to try,
Right.
and I don't know if it was right before that season or it was maybe even a season before to try and spark their offense. And he was still their bell cow at that point. For the Jets have really been tempting fate these last decade or so and getting these ancient running backs and signing them to their second and third deals with him and Bell. It's very strange to me. But now to kind of lead us up to the hit itself.
So, as you mentioned, this is a game that was challenged from the very beginning. I mean, couldn't even start on time. That's how unusual the circumstances were, and it was a game where neither team was able to be very effective. It really was an old school slobber knocker kind of a game that the teams were trading blows defensively, and neither team really could get it going. I guess the Ravens did mount one, touchdown ending scoring drive, but really it was a tough slog throughout the whole thing. So the Ravens did pull out, and actually did get a touchdown. And I think, like you said, they were leading 7-6 at halftime. And the rest of the points were a grand total of one field goal after that point.
Yeah, this is an inefficient game for the Ravens. They had 3.8 yards per offensive play. They did have 75 plays. Now, here's the big statistic in the game, and this should have related to more scoring, honestly, and an easier defensive effort. They had pretty easy time as it was. The Jets had 6 first downs. The Ravens had 20 in the game. Ravens were 11 of 19 on third down. The Jets were 1 of 11. So Jets had a lot of trouble getting the Ravens off the field, but the Ravens weren't mounting long drives with that 3.8 yards per offensive play. So great game, certainly for the Ravens defensively here.
And I think probably a very good game from the Jets' perspective defensively as well, to hold the Ravens, despite giving up 20 first downs, to a total of 10 points is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if I remember correctly, there were a couple of turnovers for the Ravens. I think maybe 2 Flacco interceptions.
Flacco had an interception, yeah, and did somebody else have a fumble? We'll look for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a while ago. My memory.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
Memory's a little hazy.
McGahee and Flacco each lost a fumble.
Okay.
So, so take us up to the point in the game then with when Lewis hits Keller.
So my recollection is that this was in the fourth quarter, and the Jets were trying to move the ball, and Dustin Keller was going right over the middle, and had no idea that Ray Lewis is anywhere nearby, and it was almost within a fraction of a second of the ball getting to him that Ray just unloaded onto him. And this is, when you look at this kind of a play, that's when you realize where the term decleating comes from.
Yep.
Right? His, Dustin Keller's feet went up in the air. He got totally rocked. And frankly, I don't think he was ever the same player again. I mean, that's one of the hard parts about the game. And one of the great things about the game is that it is so physical, but there's a cost to the game. And in this case, I don't think Dustin Keller was ever the same player after that hit.
Yeah, played a couple more years in the league, but you're right. Didn't have a long career. That's for sure. I was trying to find the play for sure, and I didn't go back to the video for this, but there are two plays that might have been. There's a 2nd and 6 where Haloti Ngata got a quarterback hit. And there's another 2nd and 10 with 52 seconds left, about 3 or 4 plays later, where there's an incomplete short middle to Keller, which does not do the play justice if that's the one. But whichever one is the case, Ray Lewis was not credited with a pass defense on the play. It was an incomplete pass, and he finished him off after the ball had been loose.
That's stunning that he's not credited. I mean, is there any bet that clearly that was an away game, right? And whoever is doing the scoring was.
There is some of that, by the way. There's definitely some of that. There's a lot of inconsistency in the game book scores. I think they've tried to do better over the years, but it goes back to my early days doing what I do. In 2006, the Cleveland guy had a different opinion of what a quarterback hit was. It's like anytime the quarterback gets touched, and he would put it in the game book like that, and it would last that way. They wouldn't correct it. And one of the things about the NFL is they only correct official statistics. So they'll correct a sack, but until quarterback hits became an official statistic, and I'm not sure when that was, they wouldn't correct the quarterback hits. They just leave it in there. I think it's inconsequential. It doesn't even matter, but of course it matters.
Yeah, except to every other coach and every interested fan.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm just a guy. I never played ball. I don't know ball. I'm just a fan, and I'm the guy that Coach Harbaugh was talking about in one of his
end of the bar.
Yeah, I'm just a guy at the end of the bar, except I'm on my couch. I'm not even at the bar.
You're that far out of it. Yeah.
Exactly. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I did want to say this about the Keller hit as well. The NFL officials wanted to clarify what was a clean hit after that play, and it was over the course of the next year. They produced a series of videos to try and help clean up the game, get away from helmet-to-helmet contact, leading with the helmet and whatnot. This play is one of the ones that was brought forth as a poster child for great player, great hit, not any kind of dirty. So Lewis actually goes into him with his pads on the shoulder to his midsection, decleats him. It's as hard a hit as you can show without there being a lot of helmet contact being involved in there. So it became kind of a poster child for a clean hit. I really like that about it, that Ray has something that.
And I'm curious though, is that your impression of the way that kind of a hit today would be officiated?
I'm not sure, because the rules have changed even further, such that a defenseless receiver has even more right not to be hit. So some of the hits we've seen, that one in particular in 2010, go back to the 2000 Super Bowl and watch. I think it's Jamie Sharper destroy somebody over the middle, and try to remember who the Giants receiver was, but there's Raven on each side of him. And Sharper basically bends him backwards with a hit to the head from his shoulder that is just as devastating. I couldn't believe the guy got up.
Yeah, and it's interesting watch with the Bullies of Baltimore recently airing, and I've watched some of those Super Bowl 2000 Super Bowl replays, and oh my gosh, the game is completely different, and you could never get away with any of that in today's game. But that's what made that team so special.
Yeah. Well, it certainly was a really cool thing to see. I wish they had done more on that special about how the Ravens schematically were so successful, as opposed to, it was a great homage to the Goose. It was a great, emotional ride through that season. I just wish they'd had more scheme stuff and more stuff about, well, here's what the Ravens did when they wanted to play against you on third down, and they brought in these extra defenders, and, Jamie Sharper, left the field, and so did some other players, and Bullware moved up to the line of scrimmage. And I wanted to see more of that. I didn't get.
Well, of course you would.
Yeah. Okay.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
And me as the fan at the end of the bar, I would have loved if they would have interviewed some former players, right? Imagine if they had, well, I don't know if they'd be able to get Kerry Collins. He's probably still suffering from PTSD from that game. But how about
Del Greco?
Yeah. Or what about
Eddie George,
McNair, Eddie George? Yeah, some of those other former Titans players or other New York players. But
Corey Dillon, who gave up, Achilles Smith. I don't think you could get a lot of these guys to get on. Is kind of the point here. But there'd be some players. Rich Gannon, I don't think you could get him to come on and talk without a string of profanity occurring about that game. And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, he's been a broadcaster, so he knows how to control himself very well. He might be able to say it or not in terms of how is it clean or a dirty hit. But that's a great idea. And somebody ought to try and do that, but I think they're going to get a lot of doors slammed in their face going after a lot of hangups on the phone. Bruce, really appreciate having you on to talk about this play. It's just it's an iconic highlight from Ravens history without being it's a play that can get lost in time a little bit as opposed to where exactly it occurred, certainly. But it's nice to kind of relive the moment and talk a little bit about Ray Lewis and the other Ravens defenders in this light. Where can people talk football with you online?
I am on Twitter at BDAABAT.
Okay, and BDAABAT.
Yes.
Okay, that's great, Bruce. Very cool guy to have a conversation with. I'm sure if you involve him in a conversation, he'd appreciate it and be a good responder there. Other folks out there, if you want to be involved in this show, please just DM me on Twitter. They're always open. Love to talk to you and love to get involved with as many voices as possible this offseason in terms of doing that one play series. Bruce, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.
92% of households that join Peloton early in the year are still active a year later.
Yeah, if you like cycling to EDM.
Not just EDM. Try cycling to Broadway hits, take a scenic hike in Iceland on our treadmill, or row to some 80s jams.
Because I have so much free time.
Whether you have 30 minutes or just 5, Peloton can fit any schedule. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton tread, row, or bikes risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.